interesting. It's going to be a conversational course. So when I say conversational, it's going to be between me and you. So just get ready. We share ideas. We draw examples from your sites. If you are already a practicing facility manager, if you're not practicing, we draw examples from the facilities around you and how they comply to regulations. So let's get to meet you, Philomena.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening and welcome.
Yeah, I'm Philomena Obaye Edoro from I reside in Benin. I work with Lapo Microfinance Bank. I am an admin officer. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Mr. Idris.
My name is Idris Akinyemi. I reside here in Lagos, Yaba. I am a student.
All right. So there is no practicing facility manager currently in class at the moment?
No, not yet.
All right. So like I said earlier, the course we'll be having today is building code and regulatory compliance. And as a facility manager, intending facility manager, it is important that you know what regulations you should comply with or your facility should comply with, so you don't go on the wrong hands of the law. So that is the essence of us having this course today.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so we are still running on the 5-minute quiz. So while we are here, let's get to meet you, Mr. Kayode Ogunlowo.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Kayode.
Okay, my name is Kayode Ogunlowo. I am a director of Rosewood Limited. So Rosewood is a facility management, like a provider, a service provider. So I manage a team of 10 people. So it's just a company we just started, and the essence of us being on this platform is for us to learn more, because we're coming from the safety angle. So that is why we are here, to learn more.
All right, that's interesting. So this is the right place, and building code and regulatory compliance is the right course actually for you, because you get to understand the regulations, the laws, rules guiding the facilities you are managing, and also if the building is even compliant in the first place. So welcome to the class. And lucky enough, I think you would have the experience. So this should be like a conversation. We will draw examples from what's currently happening in your facility and what is on the course.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, so a quick one, and that should be like the last introduction. Mary Alabi, then after Mary Alabi, we have Timothy Ifyong, and the class kicks up. Hello, Mary, can we meet you? All right, like she's not here. So Mr. Timothy, can we meet you?
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, Timothy Effiong.
Okay, right, Mr. Timothy, are you, what's your profession? Facility manager? What?
Okay, currently I'm HSC, Health, Safety and Environment professional.
All right, that's great. Okay, Mary, we are saying something before. Can we meet you?
Good afternoon. My name is Mary. I'm a facility manager with several.
Sorry, I'm struggling to hear what you're saying.
Okay, I said my name is Mary Alabi, a facility manager from several.
All right, Mary, you're welcome to the class. All right, so
Thank you.
let's dive deep into the class. So I want to share my screen. All right, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so the course today is Building Code and Regulatory Compliance. And we'll be looking into some, okay, this is the house.
Please, can you on your video?
Okay, do you want me to on my video?
Yes, please.
So we have to observe the housekeeping and ground rules. So brief introduction, student to consider their training areas and eliminate any possible interruptions. One conversation at a time. Participants should only unmute when they are permitted. Signify interaction with hands raised options. Then break. Break time will be communicated by the facilitator here. So the objective of the course, so after completing this course, students will be able to, so these are just a rundown of the objectives of the course. You will still get the course material, so we quickly have to move. The course outline, introduction, history of facility, module, key elements in facility management, and all those things here. So let's get started. First of all, let's even take a look at what regulatory compliance is in the first place. So it says, sorry, please. I have to take this off so that I can see my entire screen. Okay, so it says regulatory compliance refers to an organization's adherence to laws, regulations, guidelines, and specifications relevant to its business processes. The goal is to ensure that organizations operate ethically, protect consumer rights, and maintain industry standard. So regulatory compliance, the basic goal is to ensure that your organization operates ethically as stipulated by regulations to protect the rights of the consumers or the users of the services you are providing, and also to maintain the industry standard. So you have to bear this in mind. These are the basic goals of regulatory compliance. So there are some regulatory institutions in Nigeria, like Nigeria Building and Road Research Institute, the Real Estate Development Association of Nigeria. So REDAN is a popular institution, everyone knows. So we have Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority, LASERA, National Environmental Standard and Regulations, NESRA. We have SON, which is the Standard Organization of Nigeria, and Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria, and the Federal Ministry of Work and Housing. So these are just a few of the regulation institutions in Nigeria. So we move down to the benefit of regulatory compliance. So why do you even, what does regulatory compliance do? What do you benefit from being compliant with regulations? So it has environmental it enhances environmental sustainability. It supports urban planning and development. It improves workers' safety for people who work in various industries. Complying to regulations helps to improve the safety of those who work in any field at all. So it ensures structural safety and quality. So this is taking it down directly now to real estate and the built environment. So it is as a result of compliance with building codes and safety standards, and ensures that houses are built to withstand environmental factors such as wind, rain, and natural disaster. It reduces the risk of structural failures, such as building collapse, which are common in cases of non-compliance. So we all know the issues of building collapse, which happens basically as a result of people building with substandard materials, people building with materials that are not approved, people building with materials that are not supposed to be used in a particular type of structure. So you have to know that if you're building a 10-story building, your mixtures, your concrete, and whatsoever you are using should be different from when you are just building like a bungalow. So these are just different areas where compliance takes effect. Then standards and regulations. So the housing sector operates under a framework of standards and regulations to ensure safety, quality, affordability, and sustainability. So these rules govern various aspects of housing development, construction, ownership, and maintenance. So we have building codes and standards. We have structural standards. We have electrical codes. We have plumbing codes, and we have fire safety standards. So we are now bringing things down to the built environment, which is the industry we are focused more on. So the building codes and standards, they specify the minimum safety designs and construction requirements to ensure structural integrity and safety. So what this is talking about is the building code specifies the minimum safety design. So it tells you the safety designs for different types of constructions. So if you're building a 5-story building, that is a different type of standard and requirement for that. If you're building a bungalow, there's a different type of standard for that. If you're building a multi-rooms apartment, there are different types of standards. So this is what it is talking about, building code and standard. So under the structural standard, it provides a guideline for building strength, stability, and durability to prevent collapse. So structural standard is telling you that there is a standard that you have to meet to ensure stability of the building, durability, so as to prevent the building from collapsing. So this is where we talk about the quantity of your mixture, the concrete, the cement, the sand, and all those things. So that is specific with structural standards. Then electrical codes. So these are regulations for safe electrical wiring and installation to reduce the risk of fire and electrocution. In electrical wiring, you have different types of wires, you have different types of standards, you have different types of loads. So you cannot use something that is meant for a very low load carriage to wire an installation that requires high load carriage. So that is what this electrical code is talking about. So there are codes for different electrical wirings. Then plumbing codes. So these are standards for water supply, sewage disposal, and drainage system to ensure sanitation. Then fire safety standards. So these are requirements for fire-resistant materials, smoke detectors, fire exits, and sprinkler systems. If you're for facility managers here or people who constantly visit different types of facilities. So if you go to like places like large car parks, you would see they have sprinkler systems. So these are standards for car parks. Every car park should have a sprinkler system. Like multi-floor car parks, it is unlike what you have in your individual apartments where you can just park your car in a small car park or outside without considering fire sprinkler system. But all car parks you go about, when you go to car parks like MTN car parks, you go to several car parks you have in Lagos, like you would observe that there are sprinkler systems. So this is a standard that they must all meet. Of course, you must have smoke detectors to detect fire before it really goes bad. So there are also a lot of other regulations like zoning and land use regulations. We have residential zoning, setback requirements, density regulations, standard for materials and construction, standardized materials, then testing and certification. So we'll take this one by one. So for zoning and land use regulations, so these are rules that govern how land can be used and developed to promote organized urban growth. Basically, what this is talking about is you don't have to mix multiple types of land use. So there are places that are specifically for residential. There are places that are specifically for commercial and industrial. So land use regulation stipulates that you only have to build residential apartments in areas that are specified for residential buildings. You have to use industrial buildings for areas that are only for industrial building, and you don't mix this type of land uses. But then, is that actually applicable in our time? I will leave you the question. I will leave you to answer that question, maybe in your individual private times. You ask if we practice this type of zoning and land use regulation in Nigeria. So we'll go back to residential zoning. So specify area for housing and limits commercial or residential development. So almost at the same thing we're talking about in land use regulations. So setback requirements specifies the minimum distance buildings must maintain from roads, property boundaries, or other structures. For those of us that are, I don't know if you have any estate surveyor here, but for those of us that are estate surveyors, when you want to carry out evaluation exercise, you would observe that there is what we call setback. So that is the space, the distance between your building and the road. So basically, cable poles are our benchmark for setback distancing. So there is a certain limit whereby your house will come out to the road. So if anything goes, if your building goes beyond this setback, when there is maybe government wants to acquire a land for overriding public interest, if your building fails to meet this requirement, that is the setback requirement, of course, no one is going to pay you compensation for that. So this is what setback requirements is talking about. Then density regulation. So it limits the number of housing units per area to prevent overcrowding. This is self-explanatory, and I believe you know this cannot be achieved in Nigeria at the moment. People build houses anywhere they want to build without regulations, without guidance, without adherence and complying to the regulations. So taking down to standard for materials and construction, regulations ensure the use of safety and durable materials in construction, use of materials that are required for the construction you are carrying out. Sorry, can someone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. At any point, you can just unmute and interrupt me with your questions because I might not really be able to see your hands raised. So we move down to standardized materials, requirements for bricks, cement, steel, and roofing sheets to meet quality benchmark. What this is talking about is when you want to mix your concrete, you ask what is the ratio of sand to stone, sand to cement. So this is what standardized material is talking about. Testing and certification. Mandatory testing of materials before use in construction to prevent substandard impurities. This testing and certification, we'll get to that point. The Lagos State government is really doing a great job with these testing and certifications. Before you, at every point of your construction, they have to carry out a certain test to certify that this, your equipment, your materials, whatever you're using is adequate enough to carry out that construction at every stage. That is what testing and certification is talking about. Urban and regional planning regulations. These govern the development of infrastructure and community facilities. Infrastructure standards, requirement for roads, drainage, and utility connections in housing estates. So this talks about how most of these things really don't work in our climate. Let's talk about when we have the piping system for gas. We don't have gas piping system in Nigeria. Then the road connections from street to street, major streets, minor streets, interconnecting streets. So these are infrastructure standards that we are talking about. Then community planning. It mandates space for public facilities like schools, parks, and hospitals. This is making provision, ensuring that there is a provision for hospitals, parks, schools, and all those facilities that are for the public. So moving down, real estate and development standards, licensing of developers and agents, anti-fraud measures. So let's talk about licensing of developers and agents. So this ensures only qualified professionals operate in the housing sector. I'm picking this because I know a lot of us could relate with what is happening currently. You can see someone can wake up one day and becomes a developer, becomes an agent without proper license and certification. So they don't comply to the regulations. Then anti-fraud measures prevent fraudulent real estate transactions by requiring proper documentations and certifications. Remove. So let's look at challenges to compliance. At this point, I will have to switch with my phone. I think I'm having some power issues, and my phone is my laptop is actually running down, so I have to switch onto my phone. But why that happens? Let's continue here first. So challenges to compliance. So from what we have said so far, I don't know if there are any questions regards to what we have discussed previously. And also, I would like someone to make an input on these challenges to compliance with what you observe around your environment. What do you think is a challenge, or what challenge have you faced or have you observed that hinders compliance in your field of study, in your practice, in your profession? Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay,
Yes, we
yeah,
can.
sorry about that. Like I earlier took notified the class about my power challenges. So let me share my screen so that we can Just give me some minutes. Let me get my screen. Oh, shit. All right, so just give me a minute. I'm coming right away. Okay, I'll soon be here. Document, share whiteboard, This is becoming a bit frustrating. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to still share my screen, but then it's actually a bit challenging at the moment. Okay, but do you have the material individually? Hello, class, can you hear me?
Oh, not yet.
Oh, not yet. Okay, that means I have to share. I'm trying to share, but then this Zoom is not letting me. Very.
Alexa.
Okay, can you help me share from your end? Yes.
Yeah, I'll share the slide from my end. I will share the slide from my end.
Oh, please do. Thank you very much. Okay. Class, please, apologies for this. It was highly unforeseen. So while we are to why your facility is not regulatory compliant, and how are you able to go about it, or what do you even think are the challenges to regulatory compliance? So we can just get interactive with that while the screen is being shared. Hello, can someone hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I asked a question. Basically for everyone, what do you think, from what we have discussed so far, what do you think are or is the challenge to regulatory compliance? Miracle, can we get to challenges to regulatory compliance? That's where we are. So your screen is up. Let's move to.
Okay, what module are you, sir?
Yeah, challenges to regulatory compliance.
Okay.
Yeah, this is here. So, okay, no one could attempt the question. So basically, like I was saying, this is supposed to be an interactive class, right? So, and there is actually no wrong answers. So we approach it from our different perspectives. At any point you have something to chip in, you have something to contribute, to suggest, you are free to interrupt the class and say what you want to say. Just make it snappy and very contributory. So let's go back to challenges to compliance. Cost implications. This is a very big challenge to why most businesses, organizations, institutions don't comply with regulations. So it says compliance often requires significant financial investment in materials, labor, and inspection, which can be challenging for property developers, landlords, or tenants with limited budget. This is something for facility managers. I will be making examples from facility management a lot more time because that is the basis of this course. For facility managers, you observe very well that for every time the compliance team from your department, from your company is coming to your site, of course, the pay that is money attached to it, transportation, other logistics. So this is a very big challenge, cost implication. When a property owner wants to do,
we can hear you. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, sorry about that. I was talking about the challenges to compliance, and I said one of the basic challenges to compliance is cost implications. Am I audible enough?
Yes, you're audible enough now.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
all
we
right.
can hear you now.
All right, that's great. So one of the challenges to regulatory compliance is cost implications. And I said I would be making a lot of influence with facility management because that is the basis at which we are doing this course. Then I was saying that if you are a facility manager here, you would observe that for every time your compliance team goes out for inspection, there are costs attached to it, either for transportation or other logistics, which at some points weighs very heavy on the finances of the company. Then to property developers, house owners, when they want to start up a development, there are other regulations that they have to meet, which also requires huge financial implications. So finance is a very big challenge to compliance. Example,
retrofitting older buildings to meet modern energy efficiency standards. Standard installations are expensive, like fire sprinkler or reinforced structures. The impact is that stakeholders may cut corners or delay compliance due to financial constraints. What this is talking about is, as a result of the financial implications of meeting up with some regulatory compliances, the stakeholders, we will get to who stakeholders are on the line of this course. So the stakeholders might, on the course, cut corners to meet with standard by now adopting substandard materials, the use of substandard materials, as a result of meeting up with the challenges. So that is what it is talking about, the cost implication of equipment, materials needed to meet up with the regulatory compliance will really, really be very heavy on some stakeholders. This will now make them to start looking for alternatives, which at most times does not meet the standard. Let's move to the next slide, please. All right, Miracle, next slide. Sorry, can you hear me? All right. So another challenge is, no, go back. To the previous slide, Yes, here, leave it here, yeah. So enforcement gap is another challenge to regulatory compliance. It says ineffective enforcement of regulations can result from inadequate resources, corruption, or lack of trained personnel in regulatory agencies. Enforcement gap. So if there are poor enforcement to regulations, it sprinkles to a lot of other problems. If you cannot say, okay, let's look at it from every other organization, in your various organizations. So there is a law, there's a rule that says every staff, before you get to level 3, you must possess this certification. You must have been certified by either NEBOSH, you must have been IFMA certified, you must have gotten your FMP, your PMP or so. If that is the regulation of your company, but then you observe that at some point, people get to level 3 without owning or acquiring these certificates. That is a problem of ineffective enforcement. So what it now do is, it will now lead to having people who are at level 3 without adequate qualification. So that is what this part is talking about, enforcement gap. So enforcement gap is saying that ineffective enforcement of regulations can result from inadequate resources, corruption, or lack of trained personnel. So if you cannot enforce regulation compliance very well, it sprinkles to a lot of other problems: corruption, lack of trained personnel, and inadequate resources. Example says inefficient building inspectors are monitor compliance. You don't have building inspectors that are trained enough, that are adequate enough, both number, both quality, both quantity, to monitor compliance. First of all, you have to even know what you're monitoring before you can monitor, right? You have to even know what you're enforcing before you can enforce. So if you're not properly trained as a result of poor enforcement, how would you now enforce compliance of what you are not aware of? So that is what this enforcement gap is talking about. Impact: non-compliance becomes normalized, undermining the purpose of regulations. Then another challenge is resistance from stakeholders. So this is a very big challenge you get in Nigeria. stakeholders' resistance. It cuts across industries. Developers, landlords, or homeowners may resist regulations they perceive as overly restrictive or burdensome. So because these stakeholders we are talking about are wealthy, they are rich, they are the big and mighty in the society. So when there is a regulation, the government faces a lot of resistance from these people. They can lobby, they can petition, and they can do a lot of things, thereby causing restriction and burdensome to the government. Let us take a typical example from developments, that is building construction. So you have a lot of developers, the rich people into development, and government says you will not start your development if you don't meet with your soil testing. You must meet to a certain level of soil testing. Your soil, the soil you want to construct on, must meet to a certain standard. And you have a developer who has connections at all points. Then if this soil test is carried on his property and it does not meet it, do you think this person would adhere to that regulation? Of course, the person lobbies and it causes a lot of burden to the government and a lot of restrictions. So that is what we are talking about, resistance from stakeholders. Example, opposition to rent controls, laws, or zoning restrictions. People build where they are not supposed to build. Okay, when you look at the area we call Lekki Free Zone, right? So this is where we have Dangote Refinery. Of course, that is supposed to be strictly for industrial. But you see, people, real estate agents, marketers, they sell properties to you with Dangote Refinery as an advantage. They sell residential apartments, residential properties, land for residential to you in an industrial land use. So that is what we're talking about. When the land use is not enforced properly, people go about to do whatever they want to do. The impact is that pushbacks can delay policy implementation or lead to legal disputes. We know how legal disputes go on in Nigeria. It can take you a whole lot of years, 5 years, 4 years, 10 years before there can be a settlement. So let's move to the next slide, please. If you have any questions, feel free to interrupt the class and ask a question. Lack of awareness. Please, can you hear me? Notify that you can hear me so that I can continue.
Yes.
All
Yes,
right.
we can hear you.
Okay, that's great. Also, the fact that I've talked and is making it a monologue, I would really appreciate a dialogue. Let us make this class conversational. Lack of awareness and education. Many stakeholders, so this is another challenge to regulatory compliance. So many stakeholders, including property owners and tenants, may be unaware of housing regulations or their importance. This is a very challenging problem, a very challenging issue to regulatory compliance in Nigeria. Because we have landlords who don't care, who don't even want to know the landlords, who don't want to know the tenancy laws, who don't want to know the laws regulating the industry at which they are developing in. So they just go about making rules that does not conform to the laws and regulations. So lack of awareness is also a very big challenge to regulatory compliance. Example says landlords not knowing their responsibilities for maintenance, tenants unaware of their right to safety and habitable housing. The impact is that violations occur due to ignorance rather than intentional neglect. So most times, a lot of things that happens in the built environment actually happen not really because individuals intentionally want to, but because they don't know, they lack the knowledge, they lack the awareness. So that's a very big challenge to regulatory compliance. Someone introduced himself as a real estate person, a facility person. So I want to ask you a question. Please, right? Yeah. So on the course of what is the basic challenge you have witnessed or you face in your properties, either from your landlord, from all the points we have narrated, either from the landlord, from the users? What is the basic challenge to compliance that you have faced on the course of carrying out your job, your duty, or your responsibilities as a real facility personnel? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening, sir.
Okay. The major challenge I had when I started working as a facility manager was in the area of services, because it's the service apartment. So in the area of services like lights, so the residents were complaining that the light is too high, as in the tariff is too high, and also the water, because they are buying water in their estate, so that is too the water is not that clean, and we are buying it. So all their problems and all their complaints are on my head. Now the developer, whenever I'm receiving all this, I'm channeling it to the management. So they say that they would do, but then they don't want to be patient to say that okay, let's get a vendor for water to make sure that they fix it very well, and somebody who studied chemical engineering. So everything. So that's it. It wasn't easy, because everybody, they are laying their complaint. My water is not flowing. My tap is rusty. This one, this, that. My light, I can't load light. The app that you people provided, and also the site is not going, network issue. So it's a very, very big challenge. It's a very, 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 very big challenge. So,
okay. I understand how you feel about that. But then, with regards to this class, let's look at that water issue. So there are regulations as to the quality of water that a resident should get. There is a quality, of course. Water is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. And residents are expected to demand, or should demand, and landlords are expected to provide colorless, odorless, and tasteless water. So that is where compliance comes in. So now, how are you complying with this regulation? So this now takes us to that challenge you talked about, lack of awareness and education. Okay, landlords may know, developers may know, stakeholders may know that this is what they are supposed to provide. Then it leads us to another challenge that we talked about here, resistance. Because you know you cannot provide this, you resist that, it becomes a problem. So these are challenges that facility managers face on daily basis that might necessarily not be. But then as a facility manager, you stand in between your tenants and the developer to instruct, direct, and suggest on the best way to go about meeting this compliance. Because in a very sane society, if you fall short of any of this regulatory compliance, there is a big fine, a big penalty for that. So that is why a lot more of the things you see on social media about facility manager, they tell you that facility management has gone beyond just maintenance. It has gone to the extent of now deciding on and suggesting how people would have quality life in their apartments, good lifestyle and well-being. So that is where facility management comes in. Beyond just the maintenance and everything we talk about, you also have to ensure that you comply with the regulations, because once they come for you, your developer will sweat and they will pass the blame on you. So these are just a lot of the things that we should be strict with as facility managers when handling our sites. So let's move to the next slide. I don't know if anyone has any question to ask or any addition to this. In the absence of that, please carry on.
I have a question.
Hello, sir.
All right, Adiola.
Okay, sir. So firstly, thank you very much. On the issue of the water, okay, as we know that in Lagos State, there are some areas that their water are not habitable. They are not. I think they are more of acidic, and the water is not useful for anything. So in that case, as a property manager, the tenants are complaining. And the landlord, on his own case, was also saying it is the responsibility of the government to provide water. And water is supposed to be, as you have electricity, it's supposed to be paying water bills as normal as we are paying electricity bills. Because in those areas, they find out that digging boreholes are a waste of money, because they've done that and the borehole keep collapsing. So on the part of the landlord, he's having justification that he has done his best, he can't do more than that. So in that case, what is the expected compliance that needs to be taken? Like, because as it is now, the tenants are just left hanging. There's no solution to it yet. You are still on it currently.
All right. To address your question, first, I'll have to start with the first step of becoming a successful facility manager is being a good people's manager. You have to know how to manage people, because once you manage the people in your facility, you have managed the facility. That is one. I'll come back to this. Then secondly, on the part of complying with regulations, yes, basically government is supposed to provide these things. These are basic amenities, social and infrastructural amenities that the government is supposed to provide. But then we live in Nigeria, of course, and government does not provide this. The burden falls down to the landlord. The landlords are at liberty to fix their rent at any price they want to fix their rent. So they also should be willing and ready to provide those things that the tenants would require. That is what it is. So as a facility manager now, you have to constantly advise your landlord. Of course, there would get to a point where the landlord starts seeing you as a burden, which might start threatening your job, your contract, or whatever it is. So now, as a facility manager, you stand in between aggrieved tenants and the landlord that does not want to do anything. Your people's management skills now come into play. How are you able to manage these people? Carry them along, tell them the challenges. You've dug this borehole severally, you've done this severally, you've done this, and no fourth solution. You might not necessarily tell them that there is no fourth solution coming, but then you keep telling them you're doing something, and also keep telling the landlord that you are managing these people and this is a level of expectations that they are looking at. Whatever it is, even if it requires, okay, since these people are paying for water, like let's use tanker. Let's provide, is it weekly? Tanker come twice a week, once in a week. And of course, the water should be treated. So the solution to bad water in these areas like Lekki, some part of VI, Inward, Aja, the solution to this problem is adequate water treatment. You can treat water very well, at least make it clean, let it look neat. When they look at it, they can actually use it to bathe. Sometimes when you look at some water, the color of some water in VR, you can't even bathe with it. Looks yellowish and stuff like that. So as a facility manager, you have to manage people very well, know how to manage your clients. In fact, if you manage them very well, they might not even have the need to complain again. Yeah. So you have to stand in between aggrieved tenants and landlord that is not willing to do anything and manage it. That's why you're a facility manager. Obviously, it's difficult, but if you master that skill, believe me, you can do anything. Your powers will be limited as a facility manager. I don't know if I'm able to, at least to an extent, answer your question. Hello, Adela?
Yes, yes, thank you very much, sir.
All right. So someone else was raising his hand then.
Yes, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Timothy.
Okay, my question is this, because most of the places I've worked as health safety and environment professional, I've observed there are a lot of regulatory bodies that come to ensure compliance. But what I don't understand is this: the compliance, is it about paying specific amounts to show that you are complying, or is it about them carrying out the inspection, doing some tests like the self test to ensure that okay, the materials you're actually using are intact? Because so far, what I've been seeing is they'll just come around, there are certain, I think there are certain amounts that you need to pay to show that, oh, you are complying, and they'll give you a note, and it will be stamped at the very site you're working on that, okay, you are complying to this, you are complying to that. But I hardly see the main inspection and, the testing process to show that these people are really complying also. So I don't really know the complying. Is it in terms of the payment? Like, okay, you've paid for this month or you've paid for this, that means you're complying.
All right. When we were discussing the challenges to compliance, we talked about enforcement gap, right? And we talked about something like corruption. So this is the challenge to compliance. For you to comply is not just to pay money. It's for them to come and inspect and ensure that you meet the standards. Now, because people don't meet the standards, they cut corners. We also talked about that there, resistance from stakeholders. They cut corners and bribe these enforcement personnel, enforcement officers, and then they issue them a certificate of compliance and they go, and it seems as if they comply. They did not comply. So the compliance there is meeting the standards with your daily operations, meeting the standards with your materials, the quality of your materials, the quality of your construction materials, and whatsoever you have on site should meet the standard, and not just making payment. Of course, the money aspect of it, it does not entirely translate to just making payment. Like before you get your driver's license, you have to make some registrations, right? Am I clear, Mr. Timothy?
Yes, you are clear.
Yeah. So before you get, so recently, Nigerian police launched tinted permit, right? So before you get your tinted permit, you have to make some registrations, right? Pay money. So that money you are paying is not the money to ensure that you are compliant. That money you're paying is for registration, to register for this. Then when it now becomes a problem is when you pay this money and you did not get the permits. You pay this money just to cut corners, not for you to. So when I want some people to come to my site and inspect my lift and know if it is working, if it is standard, I have to make some payment to invite them, registration. Then when they come, they have to conduct that. So if they come and I pay them money and tell them to go without doing what they are supposed to do, that becomes the corruption aspect of it. So one thing to it is not all the monies they pay translates to bribe. It should be a regulation that you pay certain amount for registration, for permits, and they come and now do the inspection proper. If it fails, they tell you what to do and you supply them, they come back again, and not you paying them so that they can now give you a certification why your facility failed that inspection. So regulation, now to answer your question straightforward, the regulation should be, the compliance should be actually meeting with the standards and qualities of what is required in your facility. That is to answer your question, Mr. Timothy. I don't know if that is clear enough.
Yeah, it's very clear, sir.
Okay, so lucky enough, we were able to meet, we were able to see how those challenges are coming into each of the questions you and Adiola raised. So let's move to the next slide. Organizational compliance model. This is the structured framework or system that an organization adopts to ensure its operations, practices, and employees comply with the relevant laws, regulations, ethical standards, and internal policies. It serves as a guide for achieving and maintaining regulatory compliance. Some of these models are risk assessment, we'll explain this later, policies and procedures, training and awareness, monitoring and auditing, reporting and whistleblowing, then enforcement. So these are the models that organizations employ to ensure compliance. So of course, you have to carry out your risk assessment. You have to stipulate policies and procedures to meet these things. Then you have to train these enforcement officers or your facility users. Then you monitor and audit regularly to see if these people you have trained are carrying out or are meeting with these standards. Then you do your reporting and you also do your whistleblowing. Then you do enforcement. Let's move to the next slide. Market influence. These are the external pressure and expectations from the market that shapes an organization's compliance practices. It encompasses the influence of customers, competitors, industry trends, regulatory bodies, and public opinion. Customer expectations. So these are the market influence. So who are the markets per se? Let's look at the built environment, the housing sector. So the markets, everyone who is involved, everyone that interacts with the built environment, everyone that interacts with houses. So you have tenants, you have landlords, you have developers, you have the actual engineers. So these people are the market, everyone that has a stake in the built environment. So the customer expectations, how it influences compliance. It says, buyers and tenants increasingly demand homes that are safe, affordable, energy efficient, and sustainable. So I am a customer. You are a customer because you live in a house. It's either you pay rent or you pay utility services. So you are a customer. So you have expectations. There are things you require your house to meet, and expectations are subjective, right? So I might expect my house to have 5 windows before I can live in it. Someone might not really have a problem with houses with just 1 window. So that is what the market expectation is talking about. So buyers and tenants increasingly, so they demand for different things that they want. So this is client expectations influences regulatory compliance. So if you have a society where everyone needs a properly ventilated apartment, minimum of 3 windows in a room, and you have developers who are constantly developing, just building houses with just 1 window, you will find out that no one will be living in those houses because the expectations of the customers are not being met. So they will not have any option than to comply with the regulations by building apartments with at least a minimum of 2 to 3 windows according to the expectations of the customers. So moving down to regulatory environment, so it says the impact is governments enforce housing laws and building codes to ensure safety, affordability, and environmental sustainability. Competitors' practices. This particular item now, the competitor practices, is not just limited to building sector or facility management. It's what we get across sectors in the business world, in organizations, in the corporate environment. So you tend to create standards and your competitors meet with them. Let's look at what it's talking about. It says competitors in the housing market influence compliance practices through innovation and leadership in meeting market demands. Then taking it back to where the example I gave about customers expecting an apartment with a minimum of 3 windows, very well ventilated. Then you have several landlords doing 2 windows, 1 windows. Then someone comes up and builds 3 windows, 4 windows. You would observe that there would be rush, a lot of demand for that particular apartment. And the competitors, other landlords might have to adjust by renovating the apartments to meet with the customer's demand, to meet with the customer's expectations. So this is how the competitors' practice influences compliance. Let's move to the next slide, please. Hello, next slide. All right, so let's look at the stakeholders. Earlier, I talked about and I said we will get to this point. So who are the stakeholders in regulatory compliance, in building codes? So it says stakeholders are individuals, groups, or organizations that have an interest or are affected by housing development, management, and compliance. Everyone that has an interest in a building is a stakeholder. Let's look at this from a facility management perspective. As a facility manager, you are a stakeholder to the facility you're managing. The users are stakeholders. Everyone that interacts with that facility is a stakeholder to that facility you're managing. Government and regulatory bodies, the roles they play. Government enforces housing regulations, building codes, zoning laws, and safety standards. Then you have investors. So the roles, they provide funding for housing projects and influence decisions through financial support. Let's look at financial institutions, banks. When an investor wants to develop a property and you approach a financial institution that you want to with your proposal, they would want to know the type of the specifications of the development you want to carry out. So this is how they influence the market. This is how they influence compliance. So it says again, they provide funding. These are the housing and financial institutions. They provide funding for housing projects and they influence decisions through financial support. So before they give you a loan, they have to know what you want to do. They have to know the specifications so that you will not you will not build, you will not develop a property that nobody will live in. Your money will go, because they are also looking as to how they will recoup their money back. Banks don't want to take you to court. They don't have issues. They don't want you to start dragging money with them. So they have to know that you have a clear-cut strategy of making their money, paying back the loan you borrow from them. So that is why they influence what happens in the built environment, thereby influencing compliance. Property developers and builders, so they plan, they design, and they construct housing projects. They are stakeholders. The tenants and home buyers, they occupy and use housing properties. They are stakeholders as well. These are suppliers and contractors. Supply materials and services for housing projects. Your suppliers, they are part of the stakeholders in the built environment. Facility and utility providers, they supply essential services like water, electricity, gas, and waste management. So your cleaners are stakeholders, LOMA, they are stakeholders, people that provide electricity for you, they are stakeholders. Then legal and compliance professionals. Their role is to ensure adherence to law and regulations in housing projects. Can we move to the next slide? Strategic focus. So let's take a look at strategic focus. Let's look at this strategically. A strategic focus in housing refers to identifying and prioritizing key objectives and actions to address the most pressing needs, challenges, and opportunities within the housing sector. Mark these words. It says pressing needs, challenging, and opportunities. It provides a clear direction for stakeholders to align resources, efforts, and decision-making to achieve sustainable and impactful outcome. Affordable housing development. So the objective is to address housing shortage and ensure access to affordable homes for low and middle income families. Sustainability and green housing. So previously, there were a lot of questions about green housing in Nigeria and sustainability. So let's even look at, so this is an open question. What are green housing? What are greenhouses actually? Can anyone attempt, answer, or do we move on? Hello class, can anyone attempt what green housing are? All right, let's move on then.
Hello?
Yeah, hello, very good evening.
Good evening, sir. So talking about greenhouses are houses that are they are designed to in a way that has high technology input in them. An example is the Heritage House in Ikoyi. So they have a lot of functions. To my understanding, they have a lot of functions in them. It's different from a regular house. So it can have glasses around it or something just unique. And also they use them to grow plants. They grow around them too. Some of the houses where you see all our expatriates renting, that you see plants at the borders of the building ramp up. So I hope that is my little explanation.
Okay, so is there any other attempt to greenhouses before I say I expatiate on it?
I'm sorry, I don't really know, but I just want to try. Greenhousing to me, I think, is where is an estate or an or an housing where they have energy efficiency, they're more of energy efficiency. Then they always look alike. They look alike, and then climates, the way whether they plant tree around and all those beautiful flowers around the area. That is my own. Like, I'm just trying. I don't really know. If you can help us, please.
Yeah, definitely. I will do that. Is there any other person? Or okay, let me just continue.
Yes, I want to try.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Based on what they've said, but another addition I want to add is that greenhouses, they aim to reduce carbon footprint. So they promote healthy living by planting of trees and some other renewable energy sources that can bring in oxygen and free flow of carbon dioxide.
Fantastic. So who else?
Okay, so greenhouses are a kind of house that has a transparent wall and roof, and also has to do with a control cultivation around the building.
Control what?
Control cultivation or plants around the environment.
Oh, all right. Okay, I get that now. Okay, yeah. So you all have fantastic answers, nice attempts to that. So before I now say what greenhousing are, it's not as if there is anything I'm going to add that you haven't said. But then the simplest form of it is just greenhouses are energy efficient buildings. They limit a very little energy to the environment. Yeah, they are energy efficient. There is low carbon footprint. That's just what greenhouses are. How do we even get to that? Let's say you don't have a lot of diesel running in the apartment. You don't emit a lot of carbon in the environment. You have you utilize what is it called? You utilize low energy. You don't have your light bulb on every time. You don't consume a lot of energy in the apartment. So that's just simple, short. Greenhouses are low energy emitting properties. Final. So how do we even look at this? So we think that greenhouses are those buildings with skyscrapers, glasses, yeah, very beautiful looks. No. Do you know that those houses built on mud back in the days are 100% greenhouses? Those houses, they don't use electricity. If you go inside, they are still chilled. They are 100% greenhouses because during the construction, low or little energy is used. Almost everything that was used on that property was gotten from the environment and is highly recyclable. From the mud, it was there wasn't any energy expended in digging out the mud, no machinery used. From the roofing, which thatched houses, from the roofing system, they don't have you trying to cut zinc, affecting the environment and all those things. So that's just simple meaning and simple explanation of what greenhouses is. Low energy emitting houses. So that was, by the way, not really our basic focus, but then I have always noticed that on the course of this class, people really don't get or grasp the real meaning of green housing. So the objective is to minimize environmental impact and promote energy efficient, eco-friendly housing, regulatory compliance and risk management. So objectives: it ensures adherence to housing regulations, building code and safety standards, resilience and disaster preparedness. Build homes that can withstand natural disaster and adapt to climate changes. Can we move to the next slide? Data collection and reporting. Data collection involves gathering relevant information from various sources to inform housing strategies and practices. It helps stakeholders to understand housing needs, track performance, and identify areas for improvement. They are crucial components in the housing sector as they support decision-making, regulatory compliance, stakeholder engagement, and also project evaluation. Let's move. Types of data collection. So we have already established that data collection helps in decision making. Then we'll now look at how it helps in decision making and project evaluation. We now look at how the type of data collection, type of these data that are being collected. So we have demographic data. So these are information like population size and growth trend. So we are what is the population size of this locality? What is the growth trend? Are we erecting buildings on the left side of the neighborhood? Are we erecting them towards the rail line? Are buildings being erected towards the water banks? So this is growth trend. Population size. What is the size of the population? 3 million per square meter, this. So that is how demographic data is collected. Income level and employment rates. What is the income level of people living in this neighborhood? Are they medium income? Are they poor people? So let's give a typical example of Banana Island. You can guess the income level of people living in Banana Island by the virtue of it being Banana Island. Then let us look at people living around. I hate to use Ajegule, but then let's use that. So you can also guess the income level of people living around some certain areas of Ajegule. So this is using income level as a data collection mechanism under demographic data. So housing preference by age, gender, or family size. So how do you do that? An average single person wouldn't want to live in a 5-bedroom apartment. A family with 5 children would obviously not live in a self-contained apartment. So this is your housing preference also helps to determine tells you the data or the demographics of an area. And this is a means of data collection techniques. Then let's look at the housing market data. You talk about the rental price and property values. How much are buildings sold in this location? How much are buildings sold in this location? What is the rental price of houses in this location? Then vacancy rates and demand trends. Vacancy rates. Let's look at places like Move, how people live in Move. What is the demand trend? An average person coming into Lagos, where does this person want to stay? Does this person want to live in Ikorodu? Does this person want to live in Surulere? How many houses are occupied in Surulere? How many houses are occupied in Ikorodu? What is the vacancy rate? So this also housing market data. Then construction and cost construction cost and timelines. If you are building a house in Banana Island, let's look at this side by side, and you are building a house in somewhere in Wadi Ikorodu. The construction cost is obviously different because of distance. And then construction timeline, which one are you going to give more attention to based on the rental prices and the property value? So you see how all these things are interconnected. This is housing market demand as a data collection mechanism. Then regulatory compliance data. This talks about adherence to zoning laws, building codes, and safety standards, environmental impact assessment, certification for green buildings or accessibility compliance. Then we also have operational data. So these are the type of data we are talking about. Maintenance schedule and records.
for facility managers, this is the type of data you should always have. Maintenance schedule. We'll get to it on the course of this class. Then tenant feedback and satisfaction. You have to constantly collect feedback from your tenants, from your stakeholders, from the people you're managing the properties on. You have to know how they feel, as this would help you to improve on your services. Utility usage, water, electricity, gas. So there was this period, one of the properties we were managing then, and you would ask the facility manager, what is the consumption rate of electricity in this estate? You've been here for like 1 year, you still don't know how people consume electricity. At least if you stay in a place over time, you would know how water is used. You would know that on weekends when people don't go to work, there is high usage of electricity and water and even gas. Then on weekdays when people work, these things are at low. So these are data that you also need to collect when you are managing a facility or when you are in any facility at all. Then methods of data collection. We have several methods. So we'll talk about field survey and questionnaires, where you have to go into the field and issue your questionnaires. Field inspection. You go on the field and inspect yourself and get first-hand information. Then government and public record. Yeah, there are records everywhere. There are records in libraries, government agencies and institutions where you can go and get your records. Let's move to the next slide, please. Analysis, review, and development. These are critical processes in housing projects, ensuring informed decision-making, identifying areas for improvement, and guiding the successful execution of plans. Analysis involves gathering and interpreting data to identify trends, risk, opportunities, and areas of improvement in housing projects. Market analysis. So these are the processes at which you carry out your analysis and review for development. So you have to conduct your market analysis. You do your regulatory and compliance analysis. So here is assess supply and demand for housing. What is the supply and demand for housing actually? You evaluate property values, rental space, and affordable metrics. You study competition and consumer preferences. So we discussed about consumer preferences, competitors too. You study them, as this helps you to give you in-depth analysis of the property you're managing. Regulatory and compliance analysis. So you review applicable building codes, zoning laws, and safety standards. You assess compliance risk and potential legal issues. Let's move to the next slide. Environmental and sustainable analysis assesses environmental impact and carbon footprint. You review energy efficiency and waste management practices. The review process involves evaluating the outcomes of analysis. So you have to evaluate the outcome of this analysis that you have carried out, and you compare them against the project's objectives. You must have a project objective, and standards also have a benchmark. So when you do this analysis, you review them and compare them with the standards that are already existing or benchmarks. So this is what this is supposed to be. When you review, you analyze and see if it is meeting to what it is supposed to be. This step ensures that any deviation or gaps are identified and addressed. So what it helps you to do is, when you are not meeting up, you know that there is a deviation, there is a gap, there is a challenge somewhere. So you have to identify those challenges, then you address them. Development refers to implementing the insight gained from the analysis and review phases. It involves planning and executing improvements, scaling operations, and refining strategies. Let's move to the next slide. FM activities in compliance. So we are driving down to the main point at this point now. We are going to talk about the activities of a facility manager in compliance. Like I said earlier, What really brought us here is just facility management. So everything we are talking about is narrowing and bringing us closely to what facility managers actually do regards compliance. Facility management plays a critical role in ensuring compliance with laws, regulations, and industry standards across various operational and maintenance activities. The compliance function in facility management encompasses tasks that ensures facilities operate daily, efficiently, and within the bounds of regulatory and contractual requirements. It operates safely. So this is what you're supposed to ensure as a facility manager in your site, in your facility, anywhere you are, that it operates safely, your facility operates safely. It has to be a place where people come and go the way they came. People should not come to your facility and go with one hand or with injuries. It should be efficient power usage, efficient gas usage. People should come there and feel comfortable in your facility. And it also operates within the bounds of regulatory and contractual requirements. So if you do all these things and your facility is not adhering to compliance and regulations, it is not a situation that you want to get yourself into. Because if you don't comply, when the tax master comes, you will really regret. So that is why you obviously have no choice than to comply with the regulatory rules and regulations. Then we will look at the examples of facility managers' compliance activities in action. A scenario of compliance is a commercial office building. We look at a commercial office building now, then we look at the health and safety. So as a facility manager, you have to conduct a quarterly fire drills. You have to maintain fire alarms and also inspect emergency exits. So this is a scenario we have given for a commercial office building. So the things that you have to do, the compliances are health and safety compliance, of course. So you have to do it by quarterly. So maybe your facility might have their own frequency of conducting these tests. You have to do that, draft that for your company if you don't have it already. So you have to conduct these drills, fire drills. You have to ensure that you maintain the fire alarm and also inspect emergency exit. So I want to give you a typical example of a certain facility I was involved in, that the fire alarm is always triggering. At all points, fire alarm trigger and people will rush and leave the apartment to an extent where it becomes a norm. So when there's a fire alarm, people just feel relaxed. They know it's not fine. They know it's everything. They know that that's just the norm. So they will not bother to exit the apartment or the building. That is not a very good practice. Of course, at all times, whether false or real, when there is an alarm, everyone is supposed to leave the apartment. You also inspect your emergency exit. Ensure that there are no blockers. There are nothing to block exit or to prevent people from running. So emergency exit should be free at all times so that people can have direct access to the muster point whenever there is time for emergency. Then environmental. You have to monitor energy consumption to meet local green building standards. Building compliance, you renew elevator permits and inspect HVAC system for air quality compliance. So these are self-explanatory anyway. Training, you have to provide annual safety training for maintenance staff. And also you document. So you cannot just do all these things without documentation. Documentation is key. You maintain a log of inspections, training, and also vendor certifications. Let's move to the next slide, please. Hello, next slide. Hello, Miracle. Esther, can we move to the next slide? Please, if you can hear me, indicate. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir.
All right. So for everyone on this class, I don't know how we're going to do this, but I would really want us to spark conversation, like an educative conversation on this topic on LinkedIn. By that, we are driving a change in the society and also making an impact. So I don't know, you might want to check me out on LinkedIn. My name is Nkocha Chinedu. I'll be making a post as regards to this class, and I'll be asking a critical questions on any of these things we have discussed. And it will obviously be nice if you make your contributions, make your comments, and also mention other people that you know would be interested in this conversation, because by this, we are creating a social change and ensuring that what we learn or what we know is reflecting on the actual practice of facility management. So if you may want to follow me on Twitter, if you may want to have this conversation on LinkedIn, my name is Nkocha Chinedu, CIWFM MBA. That's how to get me. Then I will make a post on this class and everything we have discussed for us to further drive the conversation. Workplace regulations. So the role of facility management in workplace regulation varies from ensuring, okay, I'll share my profile here, yeah. The role of facility management in workplace regulation varies from ensuring compliance with legal, health, safety, environmental, and operational standards. FM professionals play a critical role in creating and maintaining a safe, efficient, and compliant workplace. As a facility manager, it is your role, it is your duty to ensure that your facility is safe, it is efficient, and it complies with regulations. Health and safety compliance, we have talked this before. Implementing occupational health and safety. As an FM, you have to implement OHS, ensure workplace comply with regulations like Nigerian Labor Acts and also international safety guidelines. In some organizations, like the very big organizations would have facility management department and also would have the health and safety department. In a less bigger organization, like a medium organizations, the facility manager would also shuffle as the health and safety officer, or in some cases where they have the health and safety department, the facility manager would also be a part or a member of the health and safety department, because you are the person interfacing directly with the facility and the users. So our work just go beyond, as facility managers, we go beyond just maintaining buildings. You ensure safety of the people in your facility. Let's move to the next slide. Next slide, please. So another thing is you conduct risk assessment. So we have outlined all these things already. So I'll just run through them. You identify potential hazard and implementing preventive measures to ensure employee safety. I was supposed to ask us a question on hazards and what actually a hazard is in a facility, but we might do that later, not now. Fire safety management. So you ensure the installation and maintenance of fire alarms, extinguishers, and sprinkler systems, conducting fire drills and ensuring compliance with fire safety laws. Emergency preparedness, developing and enforcing evacuation plans, first aid protocols, and disaster management strategies. How do you ensure emergency preparedness? It is really very appalling that in most cases you see facilities, big facilities, they don't have something as simple as fire extinguisher. You see facilities worth millions of naira, billions of naira, and they don't have a simple fire extinguisher. In most cases, when they have, when you look at the last service date of the fire extinguisher, it's telling you 2 years ago. The components inside must have frozen, dried up. So these are aspects where the facility manager will have to up his game, ensure that your facility is compliant, is ready, is prepared for emergency situations. You have contact numbers of fire safety personnel, these people that extinguishes fire when it happens. Have their contact always ready, always ensure that you can even start the fight in your facility before bigger professional bodies now join you. So ensure that as little as your fire extinguishers are constantly serviced as at when due. Let's move to the next slide. Regulatory audit and inspections. So what you do is, as a facility manager, you prepare for regulatory inspections, ensuring that the workplace is always ready for audit by regulatory bodies. The worst thing you would want to do as a facility manager is to be caught unprepared. Locally, people will say caught on fresh. Don't allow yourself to be caught on fresh, to be caught unprepared. At all times, ensure that your facility is compliant. Because when the regulatory bodies might come, they might not really inform you. If you are not up to your game, you'll be caught unprepared, and that would be a lot more issues for you, for the users of your facility, and also for the stakeholder, for the owners of your facility. Most times, the result might be even locking your facilities. That should amount for loss of business, loss of man-hour, loss of time, loss of resources, loss of money as well. So as a facility manager, you have to always be prepared, be ready. Documentation and record keeping. I said it earlier. So all these things you've done, if you don't keep record, you will forget. So you have to document, keep emails, have physical documents, have software that you can use to keep all these things. Utilize Google Sheets, utilize Excel sheets. They are very necessary. Use them to document all these activities on your site regularly. Let's move to the next slide. Contractors and vendor management. Compliance of external vendors. So here, as a facility manager, you also play the role of managing your vendors. So you have to make sure that your external vendors comply with the rules and regulations. So long as they are coming to work on your facility, they need to comply. And you are saddled as a facility manager with the responsibility of ensuring that they comply. So what you do here is you ensure that contractors and vendors follow workplace regulations, such as safety protocols and waste management standards. The most common abused regulation in Nigeria, in Lagos to be specific, is workers not putting on the appropriate HSE, not putting out the appropriate PPE while working. And when you approach most of them, they tell you, Organa, so we do them now. We don't do this thing for how many years? Nothing they happen. Don't fall for that. Let me tell you, if there's an accident in your facility, first, that facility will be locked up. If you don't even get arrested as a facility manager, your facility will be locked up. There will be a lot of legal implications. Whoever it is that had that accident will sue your company, will sue the facility, and it will in turn affect the facility manager. So you have to ensure, don't say And when I was telling him they did not do anything, tell them that is the rule and regulation of this organization. So long as you're in this facility, whatever it is you're doing, you must comply. You must wear the appropriate PPE. It is very necessary. So ensure that your external contractors comply. External vendors comply. People often wear agbada, sorry, what is it called? Ankara, this clothes that run from down to top, and you see them climbing ladders and walking at height. It is very dangerous. So if that happens in your facility, stop them from doing that from this moment on, because when anything happens, hazards accidents don't pre-warn you before they happen. So let's try to ensure that external vendors also comply with the rules and regulations. Contract auditing. So you review agreements to ensure compliance with workplace safety and environmental laws. So auditing is just like reviewing and knowing if it is meeting up to the standard. Let's move to the next slide. Building, zoning, and land use laws. Ensuring workplace premises meet local zoning and planning regulations. Building code and fire safety. Maintaining compliance with building codes regarding structural integrity, fire exits, and ventilation. So we talked about ventilation earlier on. So these are just all we are talking about. Ensuring that all these things are met, because you are the facility and everything that happens in this facility comes down to your desk. Let's move to the next slide. Hazardous substance regulation. Facility managers have a pivotal role in ensuring compliance with hazardous substances to protect employees, assets, and environment. Hazard identification and risk assessment. So these are the steps to ensure compliance with hazardous substances. First, you have to do your inventory management. So you have to maintain an up-to-date record of all the hazard substances within your facility. So where you have acids, you have to ensure that it is properly labeled and recorded that there is an acid here. You have to ensure that you know the quantity and it is recorded. This is the quantity of acid you have in this facility. You have to keep the date at which it was procured, at which it was brought to your site. Risk analysis. Conduct risk assessment to identify potential hazards and evaluate exposure risks to employees. Exposure risks to employees and the environment. Safety data sheet. XDS is an acronym for safety data sheet, which ensures all substances have proper safety data sheet available and accessible. So your safety data sheet should be accessible to almost all the stakeholders, people that are concerned. So you have to make it obvious, because where people would see them and know how to go about with the substances in your facility. So if you have let's say you have an acid at some section of your facility, there should be a data sheet that specifies the type of substance you have, how safe it is how dangerous it is, what are the required PPE to put on while interacting with these substances. So these are the things that should be contained in a safety data sheet. And this safety data sheet is a responsibility of the safety personnel and also the facility manager to keep in the facility. Let's move to the next slide. Compliance monitoring. Inspection. So how to monitor compliance? You conduct routine inspection to ensure compliance with regulations and identify potential hazards. Regularly inspect your facility to ensure that everything is in order. So if there are potential hazards, you would know on time because you inspect every moment. So you can draw out a plan of your inspection, maybe twice a day, 3 times a day, depending on how large and the complexities of your facility. Regulatory audits. Work with regulators during audit and ensure documentation, licenses, permits, risk manifests in place. Then incident reporting. What is an incident? Can someone answer this one quickly? 2 people, like, let us identify what an incident is. Okay, so an incident, no one could answer that, not really because of no one knows it, but then maybe quickly we have to run. So an incident is an occurrence that is hazardous or dangerous in your facility. It might be fatal, it might be less fatal, but then you have to ensure that you record all incidences in your facility related to hazardous substance, physical incidences, whatsoever it is. At all points, ensure that there is a record of incidences in your facility, and also report it to your boss, report it to whoever you are reporting to. Ensure that it leaves your desk, because as a facility manager, if there is an incident and you try to hide it, try to cover it, when it backfires, it will come back to your desk and it will be reported that you never made the case. That was why nothing was done. So whenever anything happens, near miss, even if it's a bird that flew just across, report it is an incident so that proper actions will be taken upon that. Proper storage of hazardous substances, storage facilities, design and maintain storage areas that meet regulatory requirements, such as fireproof storage, cabinet, or for flammable substances. So this is self-explanatory. Labeling, we talked about labeling and documentation. So you ensure that all containers are clearly labeled with hazard warning and compliance with globally harmonized system. Labeling standards. Okay, globally harmonized labeling standards. Segregation. So there are points where in your facility, depending on what you do, so there are substances that are not compactable. Most times you have fire, flammable substances, you have non-flammable substances. So when you have a flammable substance, of course, know that anything that can ignite fire shouldn't be stored close to a very flammable substance. So that is what segregation is talking about. So store incompatible substances separately to prevent reaction. Let's move to the next slide. Training and awareness, employee training, awareness campaign. Conduct regular training for staff on handling hazardous substances, understanding safety data sheets, and responding to emergencies. What we basically have now is, I had a story about an accident in the facility, and the facility manager was there and couldn't give a first aid, and that was why the accident resulted to a casualty. So this is what training should all be about. In your facility, as a facility manager, do you know how to use fire extinguisher? The people in your facility, do they know how to use fire extinguisher? So you have to constantly train your subordinates, train your facility users on how to use the common equipment within your facility. So that is what training entails. Then awareness campaign, provide signage and visual aids, such as hazard symbols and handling instructions in relevant areas. So where is the hazard? You provide a symbol. So there are signs, there are symbols, standards that tells what this is. So where you have to touch with your hand, it shows that, okay, this is safe for you to touch with your hand. Where you need to jump, you show that, okay, this is safe for you to jump. Where you don't need to jump, like when you're climbing staircases, you should always let your users know that this is a staircase and they should use the handrail. It's a safety measure. So where there's a pillar or there's a balcony or a protruding lintel, you should notify the user that they should be mindful of their steps so as not to slip, not to fall, and not to hit their head against the pillar. So these are awareness and campaigns that you need to also carry out as a facility manager. Let's move to the next slide. Compliance of outsourced service providers. So we talked about this. Outsourced service providers, they can be your external vendors. So ensuring compliance of outsourced service providers is a key responsibility of managers. Since outsourced service providers, example, cleaning, security, maintenance, operate on behalf of the organization, their compliance with legal, regulatory, and organizational standards is crucial for minimizing risks, ensuring quality, and maintaining a safe workplace. So we talk about the role of the facility manager in compliance. Pre-engagement screening. So this is in respect to compliance of outsourced service providers. As a facility manager, so the normal, I wouldn't say it's a normal practice, but the unusual practice is, it is unusual, but it's what we have normalized. Your company will just go and outsource people and bring them to the site, and they will not tell you. You come to work in the morning and you see that, oh, they have brought new people. But as a facility manager, you have to be involved in pre-engagement and screening. You have to ensure that due diligence is done. So you conduct your background check on potential service providers, including licenses, certifications, and what? References. So what this is talking about is, before you engage, let's talk about a pest control personnel. So I'm happy we are talking about this now. So for facility managers or intending facility managers, your company want to bring in a pest control personnel. They want to carry out fumigation. So this is a third-party service provider that is external, outsourced. You have to conduct your background check, including the licenses. Are they even licensed to provide fumigation services? Do they have the qualifications? What are the references like? We call it testimonials. What are people talking about them? You just have to take them online and look at them. Are people saying good things about these people? What is the result of the services they have provided before? So you have to do your due diligence on this as a facility manager. Vendor compliance checklist. You create a checklist to ensure providers meet all legal, safety, and quality requirements before onboarding. Create a checklist. Okay, number one, you must have a certificate to fumigate. Do you have it? Number two, you must be certified by standard organizations of Nigeria. Do you have this? So these are examples of providing a checklist. So they have to meet all these items on your checklist before you onboard them. Audit documentation. Request and verify compliance documentation such as business registration and licenses, tax clearance and certificates, health and safety certifications, environmental permits. So these are a few of the things you might request from intending outsourced service providers before you can now onboard them. Let's move to the next stage, please. Next slide. Monitoring and reporting. Monitoring and reporting is talking about regular inspections. You have to conduct periodic audit and inspection of service providers' work, or service providers' work, sorry. You have to conduct periodic audits and inspection of service providers' work to ensure adherence to regulations. That work they are doing in your facility, per se, are they even meeting up with the safety regulations and standards? Compliance reporting. Require regular report from service providers on their compliance efforts, such as safety incident and measures taken. So you have to get these reports from your service providers at all times to ensure that they are even putting in efforts to comply. And it's not just effort to comply, they are actually complying with the safety standards and regulations. Then waste disposal record for environmental compliance, training logs for their employees. Do they even train their employees? So what is a log? How can you track that they are training their employees? So these are the things that you have to also demand for in that compliance report. Let's look at incident management. It says establish protocols for reporting and investigating compliance breaches. Performance evaluation, KPI reviews. Regularly review performance against the KPIs outlined in the SLA. SLA is service level agreement. So you have to regularly review the performance if they are meeting with the KPIs as outlined in the SLA. Then feedback loops. Collect feedback from internal stakeholders to assess the quality and compliance of outsourced services. Corrective actions. Address non-compliance with corrective actions and track resolution. When you notice that they are not complying, you have to address it strictly, and I outline corrective actions that they need to take to ensure that they start complying. Next slide, please. So we would have to be a bit faster at this point. Clearly defined contracts. So service level agreement include detailed KPI for performance, safety, and compliance. So you have to ensure that there is a clear definition of their contract. This is, so let there be, don't permit confusion on the contract where people will have to guesswork. Is this what we're supposed to do? Is this what we're clearly define their responsibilities on the contract? Compliance clauses specify adherence to legal, safety, and environmental regulations within the contract. Termination clause outline penalties for non-compliance, including contract termination. So you have to let your external vendors know this is the implication of not complying with this. If you don't comply with this, your contract is terminated, or so amount of service or percentage is deducted from your pay or something. So these are supposed to be clearly outlined before you proceed with outsourced vendor service providers. Let's move to the next slide. Protective equipment regulation. In facility management, compliance with protective equipment regulation is essential to ensure the safety of workers, occupants, and facility users. The key activities related to PPE includes procurement and distribution. So source and provide the correct PPE. Ensure that the correct PPE is provided to your service personnel. Then safety gloves, hand tool, eye protections, respirators, masks, etc. Ensure that PPE meets approved safety standards and it is replaced as and when damaged. Don't let people working in your facility to use used equipment. When it's bad, when it's turned, just do what? Replace it immediately, because it is of no use wearing something that is not of standard. The same damage that will be done to someone who is not putting it at all will still be done with someone who is wearing substandard or turned equipment and preventive equipment. Let's move to the next slide. So risk assessment and compliance. You've moved 2 slides away. Yeah, risk assessment and compliance. Conduct hazard assessment to identify risks that require PPE. Ensure compliance with local and international safety standards such as Occupational Safety and Health Administration, ISO 45001, then the Nigerian Labour Act regulations. Training and awareness programs. Conduct regular training sessions on PPE usage, maintenance and storage. Monitor and enforcement. And implement PPE compliance checks through supervision and safety officers. Set up penalties or corrective actions for non-compliance. Let's move to the next slide. accident reporting. Accident reporting is a critical safety process in facility management to ensure workplace incidents are properly documented, investigated, and mitigated. The purpose of reporting is, one, they are documented, you investigate them, and also mitigate, that is, prevent future occurrence. It helps to improve safety measures, comply with regulations, and reduce future risks. Steps in accident reporting. One, immediate response and first aid. So we talked about how it is necessary for a facility manager to even be a first aider, because you should be the first person to notice or to be aware of any incident or accident in your facility. So you have to secure a scene to prevent further harm, provide first aid or medical attention if needed, report the incident to a supervisor, facility manager, or safety officer. Then incident documentation. What is the essence of all this if you don't document? So you have to properly document what has happened. Let's move to the next stage, please. Investigation and root cause. So you conduct an on-site inspection to determine what caused the incident or accident, interview witnesses and gather photographic or video evidence. These days, they call it Chakam, keep your evidence. So you have to do proper investigation to know, have pictures and videos that would show as evidence as to what happened. All these things are geared towards preventing a future occurrence. Mitigation. Corrective actions to prevention. Corrective actions and prevention. So you have to do a recommendation on the corrective actions to be taken. Let's say, for example, electrocution. So you have to ensure that naked wires are all closed. People wear appropriate PPEs at all times. So these are what recommend immediate corrective actions to mitigate what really happened and prevent future occurrence. Then provide additional training if needed. Of course, keep training, and keep training. Then you report to authorities. Like I said earlier, you must ensure that at all points you report what has happened, make it leave your desk, report to the authority, report to your supervisor, report to whoever you give reports to at all times. Let's move to the next slide. So the Nigerian Building Code. The Nigerian Building Code is a set of, so we are done with, so we are talking about building code now. The Nigerian Building Code, NBC, is a set of regulations that govern the design, construction, and maintenance of buildings in Nigeria. Sustainability and structural integrity. It provides guidelines for developers, architecture, engineers, and facility managers to follow in residential, commercial, and industrial projects. Let's move to the next slide. So the key aspects of Nigerian Building Code: structural and construction standards, fire safety regulations, accessibility and public safety. So guidelines on material design and structural integrity to prevent building collapse, load-bearing requirements and foundation, walls, beam, and columns. Fire safety regulations. So this is a fire-resistant materials and construction techniques, mandatory fire alarm extinguishers and escape route in commercial buildings, emergency exits and evacuation plans for public spaces. So we have talked about all these things before. We have given a big insight on them: accessibility and public safety. So you provide provision for people with disabilities, including ramps and elevators, adequate ventilation, lighting, and sanitary facilities. Let's move to the next slide. Some building environment regulatory agencies in Nigeria. So these are not the only agencies in Nigeria, but this is just the selected few. So you can go further and inquire and research about others. So we have COBON, we outlined them earlier, Council of Registered Builders of Nigeria. We have ACON, Architects Regulation Council of Nigeria. We have COREN, the popular ones, Council for Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria. And we have TOPREG. This is for Town Planners Regulation Council of Nigeria. Let's move to the next slide. So these are their responsibilities and what they do. So you can just look at this one. They are self-explanatory, just when they were established, their purposes and reasons. So let's skip this page. Yeah, can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah, to the next. So these are just an explanation of what they do and when they were established. So let's look at environment and, go back. Environmental and sustainability regulations. So eco-friendly building materials to reduce carbon footprint. So it's also reflecting on what we talk about greenhouses. Guidelines for waste management and pollution control. Integration of renewable energy sources. Facility management and maintenance. So routine building for structural integrity, maintenance requirement for roof, elevators, and water tanks, compliance with public health and safety laws, plumbing system codes. Plumbing system code talks about regulating the design, installation, and maintenance of plumbing systems. This code ensures the safety conveyance of water, sewage, and other fluids within buildings. It covers requirements from piping materials, fixtures, drainage systems, and wastewater treatment to prevent waterborne diseases and environmental contamination. Let's move to the next slide. Then there is electrical installation code. Can we go back? You skip the electrical installation code. Yeah, electrical installation code. This code governs the installation, maintenance, and safety of electrical systems. It includes requirement for wiring. So you don't use all the type of wires, like it's not every type of wire you use in every type of connection. So this is a code that specifically lets you know what you are supposed to do at all times. We talked about it earlier. So as a facility manager, compliance with Nigerian building code ensures safety and legal compliant operations, reduce risks of building collapse, fire hazard, and electrical failure. So this is just like a summary of your services as a facility manager regards compliance, efficient energy and water use for cost saving, then a healthy and secure environment for occupants. Next slide. So we are almost finishing up. So the Lagos Model Building Code. So we are now narrowing it down to Lagos now. Why are we talking about just Lagos and not the entire country? So we have covered almost everything about the entire country and building regulations and compliance. So Lagos, I would say this is like the most or the best state when it comes to building code and regulatory compliance. So that is why we are bringing it down now to Lagos, because it's like a model to other states. The Lagos Model Building Code is an initiative by Lagos State Government to establish comprehensive building regulations tailored to the Lagos unique urban environment. This code aims to ensure safety, sustainability, and resilience in Lagos built environment. The key control activities are, let's look at the key control activities. Can we move to the next slide? So the key control activities are regulations of building control and planning permissions. Regulations of building control and planning commission is talking about the codes, establishes guidelines for obtaining necessary approval before commencing construction. It ensures that all building projects adhere to established standards and contributes to orderly urban development. Ensuring sustainability. The code also emphasizes sustainability of buildings promoting the use of eco-friendly materials and energy-efficient designs to create a more resilient urban environment. It also helps to prevent building collapse. By enforcing strict compliance with construction standards, the code aims to reduce the incidences of building collapse, thereby safeguarding lives and properties. Enforcement and monitoring. So the Lagos State Building Control Agency, this is a LASCA, is responsible for enforcing building control regulations and conducting regular inspections at various stages of the construction. So when you go to places like Lekki, Ekate, all those places that new developments are springing up, you would see some buildings marked by LASCA, stop work, blah, blah, blah. So they are on enforcement and monitoring mission. So LASCA is like the enforcement arm of these agencies. Let's move to the next slide. Public enlightenment of building control. What they also do is, one of their responsibilities is also to enlighten the public on building controls. So they enlighten the public through radios, social medias, all other means that they can use to also let the public know about building controls and regulations. Let's move to the next slide. So let's talk about stage certification and certification of fitness for habitation. Just like the name stage, Lagos Modeling Building Code requires that all construction projects undergo multiple certification stages to ensure compliance with safety and structural integrity. Stage certification involves mandatory inspection and approval at various stages of a building to confirm compliance with regulations. So the key stages of certifications are: one, site preparation and foundation. So when you want to, during the preparation and foundation, they have to come at that point to inspect and certify that you are fit to build. Then you also have structural framework and superstructure stage. So at this stage, verification of columns, beams, slabs, and reinforcement before casting. So when you are building your columns and your beams, they have to come in and also do what? Inspect and certify before you commence. Roofing, electrical, and plumbing installation stage. So when you get to this stage of your roofing, installing your electrical and installations, they have to also come to ensure proper installation, that your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing system meet with the standards. Finishing and external works. So when you're finished and when you're doing your external works, they also have to come and also do what? Supervise. Let us move to the next slide. Certification of fitness for habitation. This is the final approval granted to a building after successful completion of all constructions and compliances. So at this stage, you have met all the requirements and they have certified you at all the stages. So this is the final approval stage at the moment. So the requirement for fitness and habitation: completion of all stage certifications. You must serve the certificate for all stages that we talked about previously. Then you will comply with fire safety, ventilation, and environmental standards. Proper installation of electrical, plumbing, and structural elements. Verification of zoning regulations. You must meet your zoning regulations. Importance of these certifications: one, it prevents building collapse. It ensures regulatory compliance, and also what? Safety assurance. Let's move to the next slide. So let's talk about most of these agencies that Lagos State use for these state certifications. So before you commence any single development activity in Lagos, there are important government agencies to meet and get different certifications. They include LAPSA. This is Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority. So they give building approval for all building projects in Lagos State. They oversee such developments as new development, redevelopment, renovation, fencing, revalidation, demolition, and what? Additional floors. So at all points that you want to do anything in your property, in your building, in your development, you have to meet these guys. Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority. Then the last guy we talked about, Lagos State Building Control Agency. They carry out the inspection of building works and they give you certifications of clearance for various stages of building construction and also keeping such records. Let's move to the next slide. We're almost finishing. So we have the Lagos State Safety Commission. So these guys are responsible for coordination of all government matters relating to safety of lives and properties in Lagos. The commission is vested with the powers to formulate policies. They provide advisory and also safety-related issues. The Lagos State Material Testing Laboratory. So these ones are those guys that give you permits to the different components of the building that you are testing. So they exist to ensure zero tolerance to building and civil engineering infrastructure collapse. Most times, which is as a result of substandard or inferior quality building materials. So these guys test the building materials you use throughout your construction. They consist of 3 levels of testing: the concrete testing, the conduct, the steel. So these are the steels, actually not concrete at this point. So the iron steels, then the chemical laboratory. So let's move. We are done. I think it's just about 2 slides before we are off. Then our regular friends and neighbors. We have the LOMA, Lagos State Waste Management Authority. So everyone knows these guys. They always come into your facility to move your waste. They are powerful. LOMA is very powerful. They specifically, the Construction, Demolition, and Disaster Waste Management Department, they should handle the evacuation of your construction wastes. These guys can also seal your site if you are found wanting, especially when there are no prior arrangement with them and you are caught disposing of waste indiscriminately. Then we have the local council. The local council people are just those people that are within your LCDA, within your estate, within your neighborhood. So their offices are around your projects to register construction. They seal your site if you owe levies, dues that are supposed to be paid. So these are just the agencies that the government state use to implement and enforce regulatory compliance. So as a facility manager, these are your guys, these are your people. These are people you always have to meet with at all times to ensure that your facility runs smoothly at all times. So all of us are not practicing facilities.
Sorry, I can't hear anything. No, I don't know if it's from my end.
Can I hear you again, sir?
Yeah, we can't hear again.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can.
All right. All right. So I said that is the end of our class. So this is your assignment. It's on the screen. And I said I have just dropped my LinkedIn username on the in-call chat. I am going to initiate a conversation about the class we have had now. So let's have some thought-provoking conversations regarding this course on LinkedIn, and also invite others to talk about it, as over time it has proven that this helps us to research more and learn. And if you have any question you might want me to address now, feel free to drop it, or if you want it later, you can also drop it and I will address your questions in due course. So that is the end of our class. Thank you for listening attentively. To an extent, it was engaging, but we just have to be up to speed because I observe we are lagging behind with time. I would always want our classes to be a conversational class where you talk, I talk, and we share ideas. I understood that people learn more with that mechanism. So the class is open for your questions. I'm available to answer them.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for this strategy. Can I use the word strategy? The way you handle your class, because from the beginning it was interactive. Are you getting? If you can have more of that, I think it will make the class not to be boring. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, sir. And thank everyone for attending. Also, please, I would like to remind you of the feedback survey. I noticed none of you have filled it at all. Please, I'm urging you all to fill it after this class. And the ones we've taken before should try and fill this feedback survey of this class. It enables us to know how to do better on each courses. All right, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Class, if it's necessary that we do the feedback survey, it helps us to improve on our tactics on the type of courses we provide for you. So please kindly fill the feedback survey and submit. Thank you very much, and have a great night.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. It's nice having you.